listening to Sasquatch Syndicate.
911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Did you see what it was? Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my central light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard.
And all the ape believers don't want any of the paranormal believers to say anything because they're all whacked and screwed up and we don't want them. And all the paranormal believers don't want to go to the ape believers saying, well, you're all closed-minded. You're not open to the fact that it does this and it does that.
And I look over my left shoulder and this creature is running through the woods and it's bulldozing the brush down. And I knew, man, this thing is going to get me.
Welcome to the Sasquatch Syndicate. I'm your host, Chuck, out in Seattle, Washington, along with Paul in Portland, Oregon. Thanks to everyone for listening and those following us at SasquatchSyndicate.com and on our social media outlets. For those participating in the Sasquatch Syndicate monthly t-shirt giveaway, this month's winner was Jeff Burden from Butte, Montana. So Jeff, congratulations, and please check your Facebook for winner notification. Happy May, everyone, and before we get rolling tonight, we had a few inter-month prize giveaways for a few contest winners on Facebook. The first contest was regarding the highway caption, and while we appreciated everyone's comments, and there were so many great creative tags, the winner for this month was actually Donald Stewart. The second contest we did was the Best Sasquatch Easter Egg, and the winner was Brunella Falgout from Terrytown, Louisiana. And I may have pronounced that wrong, so sorry about that, Brunella. But thank you for posting your green Easter egg with the Sasquatch footprint. And thanks, everyone, for sharing. It's always great to see you guys out there following. So another great 2 weeks for the show. And I just wanted to say thanks to everyone that came up to Bigfoot University in Bremerton, Washington, and to all those that were able to come up to Willow Creek for Bigfoot Days this past weekend. It was absolutely awesome just to hang out with you guys and see everyone just, having fun and enjoying the entire experience. So as many of you are aware, we started this year with our Building the Citizen Scientist mini-series, and that started with Dr. Bindernagel, continuing to Dr. Meldrum, and then Dr. Dishotel. And it was really to talk about how to collect evidence and kind of the academic point of view on research. The next three main episodes, which I call the main episodes the first of each month, it's going to be a mini-series called Citizen Scientist Application. So in this new mini-series, you're going to be hearing from 3 different field research organizations that use these techniques in real-life applications, and you're also going to hear about some of the challenges that go on out in the field. The first research group we're going to be interviewing is the Independent Sasquatch Research Team. They're located in Central Florida by founder David Sidoti. Their website is ISRTUSA.com, and we hope you find this episode very educational. So David, welcome to Sasquatch Syndicate, and if you wouldn't mind sharing your background for our listeners.
Well, originally I was born in Connecticut, and my parents moved down when I was 2, so I've been living in Florida most of my life, and mostly in kind of north-central Florida, but for the past 12 years, now I've lived in the lower central part of Florida, just outside of Tampa, Florida, in between Orlando, Florida. And then I've been doing this research since 1995.
So David, if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about, kind of how you got into the phenomenon of Sasquatch and Bigfoot and really what drew your interest.
Well, what got me interested in the whole subject is when I was around 7 years old, I believe. My family used to watch all different kinds of shows, but we used to really watch the show called In Search Of by Leonard Nimoy. It was narrated by him. And that's when, that's age 7, me and my brother, he's a little bit older than me, so he would probably been about 8 or almost 9. We watched that show with the Patterson-Gimlin film, and that was the first time I saw that film. And at that moment, I was like, man, that would be really cool if something really did exist out there like that. Because growing up, we didn't have technology like we do today, so we were outdoors a lot. And we had to use our imaginations, run around, and play outside, and it was almost like a punishment for us if we had to come inside and have to do stuff like homework and clean up your room and that kind of stuff. But we always like to play outside, ride bikes. Fortunately for us, we live in rural areas here in Florida, so we played out in the woods a lot, and we adventured a lot, checked out things, and we would be gone most of the day out in the woods, just checking things out. And so when that show came on and we saw that, I was like, man, that would be cool if we ran across one of those. But that sparked my interest then. Of course, growing up and getting busy with life and getting married and that sort of thing kind of puts everything on the back burner. It wasn't until 1995 when I started getting in the computer field, messing around with that, and I got my first computer at home and started playing around, and I started doing, I put in Bigfoot or Sasquatch in the search engine there, and lo and behold, there's a lot of information out there, and that kind of re-sparked my interest and got the ball rolling, so to speak. And back then, there's the more famous website out there, the BFRO, and they had a lot of reports. So what I would do is read report after report, no matter where it was, on the subject. So over a matter of a year and a half, 2 years, I probably read thousands of reports out there, and what I started realizing when I was reading these reports, I was picking up patterns of these creatures, habits, patterns that they would have. So I started collecting that data in my head and writing things down and getting an idea how I was going to approach this research, because at that point I was all in on it, and I wanted to get in with a group to get my feet on the ground, get my hands dirty in the field. So after doing a bit of armchair research, I hooked up with the BFRO, got on with them. I was with them probably about a little over a year, and then decided to get out. So anyhow, I just wanted to go at it at my own, because I knew enough information at that time to just go at it full blast on my own. I started doing that, and but I kind of wanted to have some other people, some really good people with me, because it's always safer to do that if you're, especially out in the field doing research, investigating areas. So in 2000, I decided to create the group Independent Sasquatch Researchers, and that became the Independent Sasquatch Research Team. And I was getting a few people from different groups that were kind of tired of how things were ran in those different groups, and my website got out for people interested in the subject and wanted to know how to join, and that just kept building from there. We're still kind of a small group of people. We've got probably about 20 people total. We got about a handful of core researchers that we go out all the time. So, but it seems from that point, that's where we are right now, and it's been going on for, it's 17 years.
So growing up, and of course I was in Omaha when you were out on the East Coast, but having seen this phenomenon in Northern California and then hearing about it in areas like the Pacific Northwest, when you started your research, did you ever really think, am I going to find anything down here in Florida?
Oh, not really, because I've already read, like I said, read a lot of reports just in the Florida area. Some were old. They dated back to, they dated back, right, like the 40s, 50s, all the way up to the, most around the 70s, where more and more people were coming in into rural areas of Florida, and that's where your sightings occurred because development and so forth was encroaching on the wooded areas. So these creatures were getting seen more during that time period. And actually, there's a lot of reports. Can't think off the top of my head how many just in the state of Florida, but there's probably just reported, there's probably at least maybe over 1,000.
So, David, for the listeners that have never been to Florida, and of course, a lot of us know about the swamps there, could you kind of just do a geography overview of kind of, the public lands, maybe the protected lands, some of the conservation areas, and really how remote these areas are that your team is out researching in?
Well, there's a lot. There's still a lot of property in the state of Florida, and thousands of acres that on public land. For instance, like water management owns a lot of property. The state owns a lot of property as far as state parks and so forth. But there, as far as an actual total of how many acres and that, I really can't go off the top of my head how much. But there's a lot left here in Florida, believe it or not, and the encroachment is kind of slowing down a little bit because of certain laws that are being passed, which are good. But the geographic of the Florida is you have really there's a lot of swamps. There's quite a lot of swamps, but there's also a lot of dry land that's pretty thick with dense forest. You have a lot of creeks and rivers, springs, natural springs coming up in a lot of places. But the Florida is people don't. It's kind of like, I don't know if any other research or seen East Texas. It's East Texas and that area is pretty close, similar to Florida in some of the areas. There's some hilly areas of Florida, not too hilly, but there are some pretty good hills. And you have sinkholes, of course, and we actually have caverns in the state of Florida, especially in the northern panhandle, and some in and around the Ocala National Forest area. And these crevices are kind of like caves, underground caves, and there's quite a lot of those. And but you have your palmettos, your pine trees, your all sorts of different trees, oak trees. But it's pretty dense. If you look at my videos on tracking Sasquatches on my YouTube channel, you can get a good idea of the terrain we go in the state of Florida.
So, David, as we talk about citizen scientist application and kind of taking what we heard in the first mini-series and really applying that to a novice or an intermediate level researcher, can you kind of talk about, as your team goes out, really kind of what you have in your initial pack or in your initial data collection kit before you even start out?
Well, when I can go off of my experience of what I do when I go out in basic researching, and this is basic for me, could be basic for somebody else, but I always carry a backpack where I can survive if something were to happen to me, if I was by myself, broke a leg, twisted an ankle, or something like that. If I could survive for at least three days to a week in any particular location where I would have to wait for help or hopefully get help. But I carry a assortment of items with me on a day with my backpack, and always carry a knife. I do carry a firearm with me just because you never know who or what you're going to run up into in the woods, especially if you're by yourself. So I do carry a weapon with me, and I do have my concealed weapons permit, and I carry that for my own protection. It's not for shooting these creatures, unless of course I'm going to get mauled or ripped apart and killed by one. Not you have to use your defense mechanism for your own safety. But for beginners, I would suggest learning as much as you can of the terrain that you're going in. Always learn or pick up any kind of survival books you can. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Les Stroud for quite a long time, over 10 years. And I watched his shows, I read his books, and that helps me out personally to feel comfortable of being out in areas by myself, because I do a lot of videoing and researching investigating in areas where I do go by myself, and you never know what you're going to expect, so you have to be prepared for the worst.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Certainly as a novice, and maybe you're not even in shape to go and shouldn't be going, but certainly you don't want to also be unprepared and not have, the required equipment to, as you said, survive in a survival situation. But in terms of notification, do you leave notes for loved ones or check in at the ranger station? And do you carry a GPS locator beacon?
I do. I carry a spot locator with me. So if I am by myself, something bad would have happened and I was immobilized, I can use that spot locator and hit the button and have someone come out and rescue me, because it does pinpoint your location by GPS, and they can be there within a matter of minutes if need be. But also getting into good habits, like I'm going out this weekend. Of course, I'm going to have other people with me this weekend. But I leave a note with my wife about what location I'm going to be in and when I expect to be back. That way, if anything were to happen, she knows in the general area where I'm going to be at. And if something bad were to happen, she can point them in the right direction. It's always good to have backup plans. You don't, if you're going out in the wild, in the woods, or anything by yourself, even with other people, that other person you might be with might not have the skills to get out of a dangerous position. And you're left to rely on your own survival skills. And honing those skills is key, even if you're with a small group or by yourself, because you could be the only one that has those skills, and the mental capacity to control the situation. Or the worst thing in survival is keeping your brain focused on what's at hand and not freaking out and so forth. And that'll just get you into shock and get you even into more trouble. If you're getting off the couch and you want to get into this research, definitely hook up with some people that have done it for quite a while. Read as much as you can, get as much information as you can as survival skills, because that can only better your experience while out in the field. Never take the approach that it could never happen to me, because as soon as you say that, it's going to happen.
So David, let's talk a little bit about water, and certainly, for anyone going out, water is pretty vital in terms of your survival out there in the forest, and there's many different ways to approach that. Can you talk a little bit how you guys approach water bearing?
Yeah, I pack at least three or four water bottles with me, and I throw those in. I have a life straw as well, and the best thing to do, especially in this research, you want to plan going in areas that are close to creeks, rivers, and streams, because if you're not, I mean, that's easily access water you can get to, whether you use your life straw or boil water. But if you get, every once in a while you get in areas where those areas don't exist. I don't believe these creatures would be too far from those areas, though. But if you did, you would, definitely have to plan ahead and see what you can carry as far as water. Like I said, if you have a plan of carrying so much water, make sure you have a backup plan on water, because that's your that's your life right there. Because you can go, I believe, 6 or 7 days without food. Now you're not going to be comfortable at that point without food, but you definitely can't. You can't go any more than 3 days without water, or you're just going to die. And yeah, you got to be smart about it. You got to figure out, where you're going to go in, what areas you're going to go into, and carry the appropriate amount of water. And I do the same on any trip I go to. First thing I do is, is there any streams, creeks, rivers, or anything that's got any kind of water nearby, where in case I needed or I ran out of my own water, can I use those resources and be able to take advantage of those.
So speaking of water, and let's just talk about worst case scenario, you don't have the ability to boil it, or maybe you don't have a life straw. If you're looking for a water source, can you talk a little bit about running water versus still water?
Yeah, running water is going to be a little bit safer for you because it is flowing and it is being filtered naturally through the rivers and streams. Stagnant water, then now you're stepping it up for more danger because of the amoebas and bacteria that could be in the water from animals coming in, drinking, and polluting the water. If in a pinch you absolutely have to drink any water like that, I would try to at least dig far enough away, dig straight down into the ground, far enough away from the standing water, because you can dig down a little further and you'll actually hit water close to the stagnant water, which in that case it would be filtered at that point through the through the dirt and so forth. And if you want to take it up a notch with safety, you can use your sock, soak up the water and do that, and squeeze the water into your mouth, and that'll help it filter out some of the debris and so forth as well. But that would be in a pinch, because it's you got a 50-50 chance of still getting sick. And but in a pinch like that, where water is a must, you have to do something to get that water in your body, and hopefully you'll find help soon, because if you do happen to get sick, at least if help comes along, and then you can get to the hospital and get checked up, and they can take care of you from there.
So David, in terms of just your pack and your supplies and everything you're taking out with you when you guys go on these excursions, can you talk about just maybe the weight of your pack and really how important it is to not overpack? I know when Paul and I go out, we try to stay, right around 50 pounds, but I know more advanced hikers can go up much more than that. I was just curious kind of where you guys kind of stay in terms of pack weight.
Yeah, overpacking is a big issue, especially if you've never hiked before on any length of time. I've hiked about a 20-mile stretch with a friend of mine, and you have to pack appropriately. That's where you have to decipher how much water you want to take and how much you want to, what else you're going to carry in your pack. All these things you can learn for survival situations and backpacking. You guys are right on the mark with about 50 pounds, and you'll agree if right about 50 pounds, things start getting heavy within the first mile of hiking. And I wouldn't think you want to go over 50 pounds with things. unnecessary things that you think you might need. We usually hike out maybe about 3 to 5 miles sometimes, because we can pretty much drive into some of these areas by vehicle. Unfortunately, some of the areas we can't get to, so we do have to hike in. Yeah, pack as light as you can. I would not go over like 50 pounds, like you said. You have to carry, if you're carrying a tent, you have to go light on those things, or just carry a tarp, and then find natural surroundings for your shelter area.
So as we enter summer, and certainly there's been a lot of people on the couch this winter, and for the novices or intermediate hikers and folks getting ready to go researching, can you share a little bit about just kind of how you prepare yourself physically to really get started for your summer research?
Yeah, you want to start out slowly if you can. If you have a treadmill at home, that's great, because a lot of times, in the summer months down here, it gets kind of hard to get out into the field because it's so blistering hot. When it hits 90 degrees down here, it's like, oh my God, and then you have to deal with the bugs. But I would just, if you have a treadmill at home, and because treadmills are, I think most people can get their hands on one of those. Put a 50-pound backpack on your back, get on the treadmill, and go on that, ride that thing for several hours you can, or build up to it, and build your body up. You got to be in shape to do this. It's not getting out and throwing a pack on and going, and you just put yourself in more danger physically, and especially if you don't know how to survive in whatever particular area you're in. You can put yourself in grave danger in that way. Best thing to do is, thank gosh for the internet now. You can Google a lot of things online and figure out, look at other people and figure out a lot of things on Google. And if you don't know, you can ask people that have done it, like myself. But yeah, definitely don't get right off the couch and jump in the woods and expect to do a lot of things, and then you physically can't and mentally can't either.
So kind of coming off the couch to the point where you decided to go out in the field and do your own research. Can you talk a little bit about that journey?
When I first got into this research and doing this field work, that's what I did. I was an armchair researcher for quite a while, and I started off slowly. I started going into these areas where they had 2-3 mile hikes, paths, and started hiking on those and camping out. And I wasn't a very good camper at that time because I didn't do it a lot. So if you don't do something a lot, you don't have that knowledge. So through trial and error, I had to learn a lot on my own of camping gear, what kind of gear should I bring, of course, backpacking gear should I bring, just going out for day hikes, that sort of thing. So learn as much of that as you can. But in this research, there's a lot of people into it now. You can bounce things off of those folks, how they got started, how difficult and the pitfalls are with doing that.
So Dave, I guess, once somebody has made the decision to leave the couch and actually go out and do field research, and as you said, kind of prepared themselves physically for finding a group, what would you suggest in terms of, how people find a research group and really about how they get started?
There's a lot of groups, probably in every state now in the United States. There's bound to be some sort of group out there into this research, field research. You have to do your research on those groups in particular as well, because you want to go with a reputable group. You want to see how they are in the field and that sort of thing. So I encourage those that are just wanting to get started out, contact some of those groups and say, hey, I'm a newbie to this, but I'm eager to learn. I'm going to get out in the field with you guys and get my feet wet, so to speak, or get my feet dirty. There's rebel groups in, I know, like in Oregon, in Texas, gosh, all over the United States. There's really good groups out there. Of course, state of Florida, I have our team. There's a couple other teams here, and there's a lot of independent people out there as well that do this research. But get in contact with those folks. You can always do a search online to find out what group is close to your location, and I encourage that. And that way you can pick up a lot of things from a lot of people that have been in this research for many years.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Certainly, there's a lot of people out there with a lot of great experience, and so I think it's really important, if you're starting off, there's really no reason to, wander around aimlessly. There's definitely some common denominators on where to look, and, these research groups have been doing this for a long time, so.
We have friends in different groups in Oregon, the American Sasquatch Conservancy, Todd and Diane Ness. They're really good friends of mine for many, many, many years. They're a really good group out there in Oregon. But there's lots of them out there, and really good people, really good researchers, and you can just contact them and get on board, and they can teach you the ropes and a lot of things. But personally, you want to do your armchair research sort of thing, if I will. Look up the history of these creatures. Read a lot of good books out there that people have written over the years. There's a lot of good information out there on these things, and that'll help you determine and also figure out what you're looking for out there. That's the biggest part, like you said, is where do we go? Where do I go from here, and what areas do I go into? Well, I'll tell you straight up, as you want to, like I said, you want to stay around the creeks, the rivers, and the springs. Any animal out there is going to need water, and these things are not anything different. But also, being out in remote areas, you really don't have to. I mean, these things have been spotted really close to subdivisions that butt up to big forested areas. And, you also have to remember that these things are living off the land, and they're opportunists. So they're not, if they don't have to exert a lot of energy to go chase down a deer or some other kind of animal for food, if they see a dumpster somewhere in a campground, of course they're gonna go over to that dumpster and get into whatever kind of food scraps they can find, or into some subdivision close to a forested area where there's creeks or rivers nearby. That's happened quite a lot here in the state of Florida. And that'll help you out a lot in looking at the geographic location of the areas you're going to go in. Not all the time are these things going to be in remote areas. I mean, I believe they will be in areas where they go to be alone or live or be away from humans that are kind of in a remote area, a thick forested area where humans won't go. I do believe they do travel out of those areas to get to food or water. So, and in those travels is probably a lot where they get sighted at when they're in the process of doing that.
So maybe we can talk a little bit about just nature and kind of that subtlety of change that you guys are looking for prior just to doing any research, just really understanding, the environment that you're in and that you're researching. But maybe just talk a little bit about that.
Well, the changes that we look for are any kind of tree indications, tree structure, not to say structure, something that's built. Any kind of trees that are vegetation that have been broken, snapped, twisted, those kind of things that are pretty high up. We look for those things in particular because that's, your eye catches that quickly. But you also want to look in areas that are very heavily forested, thick areas where, say, the average Joe came across and said, man, that's pretty thick, I'm not going in there. Well, those areas are probably where these things are going to be living at because, they can get down on all fours and get into these areas pretty quickly. And you want to look for areas like that, big open areas through thick vegetation that look like something big has been going through there. And, of course, you've got to be careful with animals as well, regular wild animals, especially down here. We have hogs, and you don't want to run up on a boar hog in there, and so you have to be careful. But we look for any kind of stick structures like that, not only visual, but you have to be aware of audible sounds, whistles, things like that, wood knocks. You hear that plenty down here. We hear a lot of whistles. So you got to keep your ears sharp and your eyes sharp. We actually had a group of guys from Georgia come down, and we took a class in tracking, and they used to be, I don't know if they still do, but they still do tracking for people that are lost in the wild, and but they also do tracking as far as Sasquatching. That they started getting into that because a lot of people were asking them if they can track Sasquatches with their techniques. And so we had a class come down. The guys come down and do a class in Florida for us, and we took a tracking class with them to help us better track these creatures. So if you do find a track, you can pick up on that track with that print and follow that track to where these things are going or coming from. So that helps out a lot too. You want to be able to pick it up on a trail and follow that track and see if you can get into the location where they're going. That'll also give you a good idea of where they may be living at in certain areas that you're researching in. But my thought on things that you look for is that keep your eyes sharp, keep looking for signs of these creatures, and these things are going to make big markers like tree breaks and twists. You got to be careful with some of the tree bows. We get a lot of that down here. We have some small sapling pine trees that naturally do that because the tops of them have greenery on them, but below that, it's pretty bare. So what happens is the top of those trees tend to bow down and touch the ground. And a lot of people think, oh, that's Sasquatch did that. No, not really. It's a natural part of what these trees do. So you got to be careful on a lot of things that you may or may not know that a Sasquatch could do. Now, it's obvious if you came across something that, some trees were built in the structure and these trees or limbs or what have you have been carried from one location to another. That's a really good sign that, one of these creatures have made a nesting area, especially with palm fronds down here. Palmettos, and easiest way to check to see if it's done by humans is to check to see the end of the stem of the palm frond if it was cut by a knife or a machete, or if it was just broken off and made into a nesting area. A lot of times, I don't think even the strongest people I know that can rip off a palm frond barehandedly. It takes a lot of strength to do that, and most humans aren't going to do that. They're going to just cut it with a machete or so forth, or a knife. So those are the things you can pick up on too. We found some bedding like that. Some of the team people have come across that, where the bedding was made out of palm fronds in the middle of nowhere and matted down, and these things were broken off, like something strong broke these things off from the ground, and these big, huge fingers were piling this dirt up underneath these palm fronds, almost to make a like a nice, soft, cozy bed to sleep on overnight. So that was interesting. So those are the things to look for. It depends on your terrain, what you can look for in that. But definitely get with people in your area. Go over the things that they've found and what they've learned and picked up on, and what these things do. Not all of them are going to do the same things in different areas. You may not come across any structures or bedding areas like that. They may, if you have caves or anything like that in areas, or they may take up residence in those areas.
David, you had mentioned you guys typically hike in about 3 to 5 miles from where you can park, and certainly carrying tracking and casting material is can be pretty daunting. Do you guys typically find the trackway and go back and gather your materials, or how do you guys go about that?
I carry a gentle stone with me. I carry a gallon bag of that with me, and I carry an extra bottle of water just for that. And in case I do come across a track, I can mix it up in that bag and pour it in there and get a track. But not only do you want to come across a track and make a cast of something, but you do want to GPS the location of where you found the track, and you want to. For us, our main goal is try to follow those tracks as far as we can physically, and to get to a point where maybe we can find a nesting area or area where they live in. But yeah, I do carry tracking material or track casting material in my pack, and that's always good to have at least enough to make one casting if you do find a track. You never know if you're going to, that track may pick up dermal ridges or not. I did come across an infant track down here, and I wasn't expecting to come across a track, but I did have what I needed in my pack just in case, and luckily I did.
I think it'd be really great to, and maybe we should do this on a blog, but I'd also like to share too, just kind of what you carry in your packs for DNA collection and some of your collection containers. And I know Dr. Sidoti talked a little bit about glycine bags and other things, but can you share a little bit about what you guys pack for collection?
We carry rubber gloves and that sort of thing. I have an actual box, small little box that I carry that I have all my tracking material in, and I keep that in my vehicle. But I do carry, a little bit of that with my pack just in case, I do come across something that I need to put in, some like hair DNA material that you want to put in a good safe dry area in your backpack. So yeah, you do want to carry something like that. Make up a little pack that, in case you do come across that, you want to gather that DNA, hair. I wouldn't worry too much on scat because for the most part, the DNA part of scat is going to be face down on the ground underneath the big pile of poop. That's the part that, science needs, is that first part of the poop that comes out. Unfortunately, it'll be on the bottom. So, and by the time you find it, it's the DNA is pretty much gone on that. So, but hair, most definitely, if you get lucky, if these things cross over barbed wire fences or something, and maybe takes out a chunk of meat and hair at the same time, that would be a perfect scenario. You want to put that DNA collection kit with you. And yeah, carry a nice little DNA collection kit with you, along with your first aid kit, of course. In your pack, clothes are optional. I usually say, because that's not the most important thing you need. You do need to wear clothes on you that will keep you warm. You want to carry insulated blanket, those little shiny little insulated blankets you see in the stores in the camping section. You want to grab one of those. Those things really do work. So you don't need to carry a lot of clothes with you, unless, of course, you're in your neck of the woods there in Washington this time of year. You want to carry enough clothes that'll keep you warm, but not too warm, because
Yeah, what's the saying? If you sweat, you die. I think Les Stroud kind of coined that phrase. But hey, David, is there any DNA bundle or kits that you've seen that you might think are valuable, or what is it that you guys are typically? Are you making your own list, or are you just packing your own supplies? What kind of things are you doing?
I just go off what other people are using. You don't want to use too many Ziploc bags, because they trap bacteria in there. So for hair samples, or you get hair, you want to put those in a paper envelope and keep that in the dry area of your backpack. I'm reaching here. If you do come across some sort of chunk of meat with hair on it, you may want to put that in a little vial of alcohol, and keep that contained in there. That way it doesn't get contaminated by other things. But yeah, there's different kits out there. You can search online and what kind of DNA kits they have, and you can basically get that kind of go to Walmart or Target or somewhere, and you can pick up those items pretty cheaply. You don't have to buy it through online, but you can get a good idea what you're needing, and again, just talk to folks that use DNA kits in their research, because everyone's different on what they use. So that's always a good deal. But revert back to the people that are using what they're using in their research.
So, David, in terms of your years of research and your research team, can we move on to just kind of sharing some of the things you've discovered and what you've seen or experienced along the way?
Oh, yeah. In our research areas that we go into, we have, and this is part of, a little bit of part of data collection. Everything's kind of data collection now, no matter, what part of it is. It either be physical or audible or, the visual. We use, we get a lot of audible information, I call it, but we get a lot of yells, wood knocks, whistles. These things, we get a lot of imitation sounds of animals that these things are doing, like specifically coyotes. On our website, there's a couple of sounds that we've gotten in locations that we've been into that, sound like a coyote, but yeah, not so much, because it sounds totally different. It sounds like something imitating a coyote, and once you hear those sounds, you'll understand that the difference in between the two. But yeah, we've collected a lot of audible sounds like that. Some we haven't collected because for one reason or other we didn't have an audio recorder running at the time. But luckily we did. What we do have, we did collect audio on that, whistles, knocks. Here recently, back in December, first part of December, we did get a couple of sounds of all the above, not whistles those, but we did get some jabber, which sounded really interesting, and I think I sent those sounds to you. And we got some wood knocks, and some other things that are questionable. You can't really say that Sasquatch related. If you want to get technical, we didn't see a Sasquatch make these sounds, but it does put it out there for questioning. What else could have made these sounds? But we also collect tracks. We've taken track casts before. We've come across areas where infant tracks were found. We found 18-inch tracks down here in the state of Florida, and all the way, 17-inch tracks. So these things are, not the small, what people consider a skunk ape down here, are smaller than, out west. These things have been reported to be, at least same size, 8 to 9, sometimes even 10 feet tall. So you can throw that out the window as far as skunk apes being smaller than the ones out west, because that's totally untrue. But a lot of it so far that we've collected are audible sounds. We did get a couple questionable hair samples that turned out to be known animals. But unfortunately, we didn't get the hair sample of a Sasquatch yet. But we keep trying on that.
So, David, you had sent me a couple audio recordings, and I'm going to share those here in a minute. But can you talk a little bit about your night sounds clip before I air it?
The night sounds, that was recorded. We were out over the weekend on that particular weekend in an area where there's known Sasquatch activity. We were staying in a camp which is water management owned, so you have to get a permit to camp out in this location. Near this location, and in the camp area itself, there's a finger creek that goes through the camp. Well, from that finger creek, there's a river that flows not too far from the campsite. So we decided that first night, we'll go hiking out towards the creek, and we're going to go hang out by the edge of the creek there, or the river. And we were hiking out there, and there's probably about 4 of us, and I think 4 or 5 of us, I think, that night. And it's pretty dark. The moon was probably about a quarter bright, and as we got close into a location that we were going to go in and research and investigate, I told everybody to go lights out. So that means just turn off your headlamps and let your eyes adjust, and we'll walk into this location and be as quiet as you can. As we're going in there, into this location, getting closer to the river, we started picking up some audible sounds. Some I didn't even realize I got on the recorder until I got back home, and I was like, "Holy crap, that's pretty interesting." And that was the jabber thing we got, and we kind of heard something, but we just couldn't determine what it was. That was a jabber, and also something that sounds like a laugh, and some snaps and breaks, and also some tree knocks. But the very first clip, you'll hear a knock, and you'll hear that, and hear our responses on that.
So let's go ahead and listen to those clips. I'm going to start with clip 1. I'm going to play each clip 2 times. I'll adjust the podcast volume, and in between, David's going to narrate. So here you go.
We just heard a knock. We just heard a knock.
And on the second clip, you'll hear something that sounds like a laugh or a yell off in the distance.
Just heard something. Follow that. or something. Thought of that.
And the third clip was, it sounded like one of these creatures imitating a coyote.
They heard this dog. Yeah. That's not a coyote. It sounds, you know, whoa. That's not a coyote. That sounded funny. That's not a coyote. No. They heard this dog. Yeah. That's not a coyote. It sounds, you know, whoa. That's not a coyote. That sounded funny. That's not a coyote. No.
Now the fourth clip, and this is all on the same night of December 2nd. The fourth clip sounds like a kind of a deep yell. I kind of talked over it, and then you hear a tree knock right after this thing did its yell.
This is where we got that. You hear that? Yeah. This is where we got that. You hear that? Yeah.
And the fifth clip is you hear like a yelling, gibberish type of a yell. And it just sounds like someone's, it sounded like someone was just pissed off and just chewing somebody out, but it was kind of off in the distance, but you can hear it. And it was none of us because we were all just hanging out in the dark. And I was using a parabolic mic that I built. And that's what was picking up these sounds.
Gibberish. That way. That way. Over that way. Back where we came from. Where the coyotes were. That sounds like gibberish. I never heard that before. Yeah. They're pissed off or something. Gibberish. That way. That way. Over that way. Back where we came from. Where the coyotes were. That sounds like gibberish. I never heard that before. Yeah. They're pissed off or something.
The sixth clip, that was the last clip that we got that we heard anything. Was you hear a couple of snaps that were, one was far off and then one was pretty close to us.
Holy shit. That's a big. That's a snap. Holy shit. That's a big. That's a snap.
That, I believe, is, maybe they had one out there, just checking us out, seeing what we're doing out there in the middle of the night, yeah, those were pretty good recordings that we got. very interesting. That's another data collection that we collect is the audible sounds that we get. But unfortunately, we don't have any whistles. You never know when that's going to happen. So my tendency is as soon as I get out in the field, I turn on a audio recorder, and let it record continuously in a loop. And it'll just continuously record over and over and over again. So that way, if anything were to make a noise, we can pick it up.
So, David, obviously you guys carry a lot of audio equipment. What about video equipment? Have you done anything with trail cams or camera traps?
Oh yeah, we use trail cams. We haven't been too successful, but let me tell you this: we had some strange things happen with trail cams, and I've also talked to another research investigator down in South Florida that had the same thing happen to him. Interesting enough is that not too far from this location where we got these audible sounds, this was a few years back, there's a big oak tree in the entrance of this, going into the entrance of this camp area where we camp at. It's a huge oak tree. It's a century oak. Been there, probably over 100 years. And it's got these big limbs that are growing on it. And one of them particularly kind of grows out and it has a natural kind of a table, and then it shoots up a little bit. So my idea was to put some bait on that tree limb there. It's a pretty big tree limb. It's it's probably about 50 or 60 inches in diameter or more. And so I put up some bait on there. I put some fruit, some banana, anything I can think of that I've heard other people use. Mangoes. They like mangoes down here. Any sweet smelling kind of fruit I put out there. Now, of course, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, raccoons are going to tear into this, no brainer. They may get some of this. I also put a candy bar out there as well, a little Snickers candy bar. And I put all this up there, and I put my trail cam about 15 feet from it onto another smaller tree, and I camouflaged that camera as best as I could. So, couldn't be seen by any other people and be stolen. And I locked it up and so forth like that. Well, I put it out there, and I said, okay, well, I'll see what I get. It's kind of like an experiment to see what's around and see where we take it. And not particularly thinking Sasquatch would come in there and get it, but hopeful. The next morning I get up and I go out there and I check it, and everything's gone. All the fruit's gone. Nothing's there except, let's see, not even the banana peel was there. The only thing that was left was the wrapper of the Snickers bar I left, and it was laying on the ground. So now this is also when you leave camera traps out, you're going to get good footprints of these creatures too. So you make sure the ground's nice and cleaned up, no debris, where you can easily see footprints in there. When I came up to the game camera, I'm always looking for checking things out before I get to the camera and the location of where I baited it up, because you never know, you might step on a track. God forbid you don't want to do that. So I'm looking around and I don't see any of the fruit that I left, and I see the wrapper on the ground. I was like, oh, great, something came in here and got it. I wasn't picking up any Sasquatch tracks or anything like that. I didn't see anything heavy come in there that I could pick up visually. It's kind of grassy around there, not grassy, but pretty thick, and it had oak leaves and debris like that on the ground. So if something were to come in there, it'd be really hard to pick up on the track anyhow. So I get the camera down, and I was like, oh, shoot, well, let's go back and go back to camp and see what I got on off the card. And this is a game camera I use. It's got blackout, so you don't see, the LEDs go off. So, it's very subtle. And first couple of videos I get on it, it's, me putting up the camera, setting it all up, and getting things straight, putting the bait out, and then me leaving. And then you see a couple of videos where, sometimes the wind will blow and set off the camera because some of the limbs are moving and swaying. You get that a lot. And then it gets dark, and all of a sudden, I have a bunch of file errors on my disk, on my card, my video card. I'm like, well, that's strange. That's pretty strange because, I noticed the camera didn't blip out. Nothing happened to the camera. So I'm going through, there must have been about, 5 to 6 video clips, because I put it on video, 30-second clips. So there must have been 5 or 6 of those that were totally gone. You couldn't read it. So it kept saying file error, file error, file error, and I couldn't see it. And then all of a sudden, early morning, you see a video, and it's marked early morning, and everything's gone, except, of course, the snicker wrapper on the ground. And then, of course, you see me coming by and picking up the camera. So that is particularly weird. I thought for sure my video card was, something's wrong with the video card. So I swapped out the video card, and on my next experience, the next time I did that, and experiment I did with putting bait out, it happened again. I'm like, okay, that's not a coincidence, where you put bait out and, the video, you don't get any video because you don't see what's taking your bait. It's very, very odd. And I got with a gentleman named Mark down in South Florida. He asked me that question one day. He goes, hey, Dave, do you ever have any problems with using game cameras and not, getting file errors when the bait's being taken? I said, yeah. As a matter of fact, I do. I said that happened to me not too long ago. And to me, it was shocking that it, happened to somebody else doing the same experiment, putting bait out and having that happen. Unfortunately, that's the weirdest thing that we ever experienced with game cameras. Unfortunately, we haven't gotten any squatches, because I've gotten raccoons and other things on game cameras, other wildlife. But this was, in particular, really strange that this was happening.
And David, I'll go ahead and send you a link to that blog I did on just shielding of cords, but just curious what else you've seen, or have you experienced anything else in terms of just equipment malfunctions?
Oh, yeah, we've had one guy had his GoPro just automatically just quit, and he knew the battery was fully charged up. He was using it, and he said, "Because my GoPro just died on me." Right. And that's after we heard something big fall or get thrown about 40 or 50 yards while we were in the woods, and we just heard this big crash, and I'm like, "What the hell?" And we were sitting there, using the audio videoing, and it unfortunately didn't pick up on the video camera, the audio sound. But matter of fact, we were investigating this palmetto bush, where it was all the palmetto limbs and leaves were broken off, and the center of the palm frond was pulled up out of the ground. Now, the reason why they do that is because you probably heard of heart of palm. You probably see in the stores, for salads and so forth. Well, that's what these creatures are eating, and there's many reports of these things eating the heart of palm out of palm fronds. Well, anything with a lot of strength to pull a palm frond center out is, something huge. And we were investigating that, and that's when we heard this crash, about 40, 50 feet behind us in this thick brush. And we're like, holy crap. And then all of a sudden his GoPro goes dead. But that's kind of weird. We do get some strange electronic failures and at weird times when things are, starting to get lively.
So, David, just kind of based on your research and what you've discovered so far, what do you believe that this creature is?
Well, when I first started, I was 100% flesh and blood, and I still feel that way. But as you get into this research, you hear so much stuff. You don't know what to believe, kind of thing. They do appear to have some sort of abilities that are non-human. Apparently, they do not want to be taken video of or pictures taking and so forth like that. But I do, of course, audio recording is different. It appears that they really don't care about audio equipment, because we left audio equipment out, overnight. And I've left out audio equipment for about a week and picked up all kinds of sorts of things, footfalls and things coming up to the bait area. And that's when I didn't have a camera out. So I don't know. It's to say if you're flesh and blood on one scale, yes, you have to be, but you kind of have to lean on, okay, we're getting a lot of weird stuff happening, and to try to pinpoint exactly if it was just an animal. And a lot of people go and think, okay, well, we always think it's unidentified, some sort of ape. Like Stroud said, if it was just an intelligent ape, we would already have one in the zoos or somewhere, already.
Well, and I think as many researchers have pointed out that, at the end of the day, it's about data collection. So
you want to collect data, and collecting all data is important. So you want to, even if you see something odd, I've heard of people saying, well, I've seen orbs when I saw a Sasquatch, I saw this orb too. And I was like, oh, okay, well, put that on the table of what you investigated, the information. Throw it on the table, and, it's kind of odd, but you never know. So you have to be open-minded on not just Sasquatch, but, there's other things out there in the woods that you have to be mindful of.
Well, David, this has been a fantastic hour. We really appreciate you coming on. Are there any final thoughts you'd like to share, or could you also share with the audience, especially those in Florida, how to best get in touch with you?
One thing I would like to add is that I want to share the importance of other groups or teams working towards a common goal. I've seen this over the years. I've been doing this over 20 years, and I've seen a lot of differences between different groups and teams, and they're backbiting, they're arguing, and they're fighting over this, that, and the other of what these possibilities these creatures are, or what they do, and so forth. I mean, none of us really know why or how they do things or what they exactly are. So to me, it's fruitless to argue about those things. But we need to come together with a common goal to collect as much data as we can, whether it be DNA or what have you, and get good DNA and be and train yourself to get this information, get this all these important facts that we need to further this research, and quit arguing amongst ourselves. Collaborate with other people. Kind of do it in for instance, like our team. That's why I call it a team instead of a group, because we need to work as a team to get this information and not make a mockery of the research, which I've seen over the years. It's just become a mockery of people trying to make themselves make themselves known in the field as being, the top researcher or investigator or what have you. We need to get more focused on of getting the answers to these questions of these creatures, and have that common goal. That common goal is, of course, collaborating with people and other researchers and scientists as well, and put our heads together and then, get hard evidence on these creatures. And one way you can get a hold of us is through our website. And our website is www.ISRTUSA.com. And we have members in a few states: Georgia, Tennessee, and some Oregon, and a few others. So it doesn't matter where you're at in the country. You can always be a team member with us and get out there and do the research and collaborate with us as well in doing that. You can also contact us on our YouTube channel. It's called Tracking Sasquatches. I do put videos up from time to time. If I don't do it all the time, I do put up videos on there that we've got something kind of not shattering, but we do put videos up there in areas that we've gotten things in, like audible sounds or foot tracks or what have you, and we take the viewer out to those locations just to show you what we do in the field. And if you want to reach me directly, you can always reach me at Florida. It's flsquatch@gmail.com. That's my direct email address. Or you can reach me through the website, www.isrtusa.com. We'd love to talk to anybody that's interested in this field, want to get their feet wet and get out in the field with us, or have any kind of questions they may have. We're always willing to help those that are wanting to learn and wanting to do this research legitly.
Well, David, I just want to say thanks again for coming on tonight and sharing kind of your data collection techniques and how your research group approaches things. I think it's very educational and will really enlighten a lot of listeners, especially those just starting out on the subject. So thanks again for doing that.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on the show, too. And like I said, I listen to you guys quite often. I listen to a lot of shows that you guys have. And it brings a lot of information to the masses, so to speak, whether new or new people in getting into this field, or people that, like myself, have been in it for 20 years. You're always learning something new, and no one's an expert in this field. That's the thing. You're always learning something new.
Well, David, thanks again for coming on Sasquatch Syndicate, and we'll try to catch up later this year and just kind of see how things are going out there in 2017.
Well, thank you again, Chuck. I really appreciate it, and we will definitely get back in touch with you and let you know what we find in 2017. Hopefully it'll be a good year for legitimate research findings, and hopefully maybe we can get some good stuff on the game cameras. But we'd love to be back on the show with you later on in the year.
Sounds good. Well, have a great weekend out researching, and stay safe out there.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
This concludes our May 2017 podcast. Sasquatch Syndicate will return on Tuesday, June 1st. Thanks to all our listeners and those that have been out to our website and those following us on social media. Sasquatch is a controversial subject, so for all the believers and disbelievers and those that will tell you they have all the answers, just remember, we're flying through space at 700 miles per hour. Buckle up.